Hello and welcome. My name is Andreas Gumse, and you're listening to the podcast Tech Talks and Beyond, where I bring you the latest news in tech and discuss a whole range of interesting subjects, anything from modern technology to ancient civilizations. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second episode of Tech Talks and Beyond. Today, we will be talking a bit about cryptocurrencies, but first, as per usual, we'll go over some recent tech news. First up, we have some great news for users of Mozilla Firefox web browser, as now they will add a multiple picture-in-picture windows and total cookie protection. Multiple picture-in-picture windows is where you can have multiple picture windows open in the browser at the same time. This allows you, for example, to have several web pages open at the same time on the same shared screen. This includes both videos and images, allowing you to watch several videos at a time or streams or such without any struggle. As for the total cookie protection, they will move from using one cookie jar for all the websites to access. They will split this up so each individual website has their own cookie jar in the browser, meaning that, for example, Facebook would not be able to access your cookies from websites like Google. Personally, I think that this is a great new addition because obviously, as we've seen in the past, certain website has been using cookies from other websites, making it autofill your information even though you have never given information to that website. So I think this is a very neat little privacy addition. Over to the land down under, we have Australian regulators versus Facebook and Google. So Australian regulators want to make it so that Facebook has to compensate Australian publishers for having their news content on Facebook. And the same also applies for Google. Obviously, Facebook was not very happy with this news, so in response, what they did is they removed every Australian news content and news stories from their website immediately, making it seem like they've won this battle. However, a couple days later, we see now that Australian regulators are still pushing through. This means that larger medias like Facebook and Google will have to compensate Australian news stories and their publishers. We have seen no further response from Facebook or Google after that, but I can expect that they will come very soon. The reasoning behind this is that Australian regulators think that there's great value from these news stories posted on medias like Facebook, and that the publishers should get their share. Next, we have some very exciting news for Android users. So earlier this week, Google announced that there are gonna come some pretty big Android updates. The first one being password checkup, and then message scheduling, as well as some updates to both dark mode on Google Maps and for TalkBack screen reader. So firstly, the password checkup is a very neat little privacy. I guess not privacy, but more a security update, as they will take your saved passwords for Google and for your Android, and then they will run it up against a database to see whether or not your password has been compromised. If it has been compromised, they will give you some tips on how to change it and what some of the security requirements are for a good password. As for the new messages feature, the message scheduling, this is something that has been requested for a very long time for Android and also for Apple, and now it's finally happening. So what it lets you do is you can compose a message and then select a time you would want it sent, be that in a couple of hours, a couple of days, or even longer. The way to do this is very simple. You just compose your message, and then you press and hold the send button, and then it will pop up a small menu where you can select the time you would want to send the message. It will give you the options in a few hours or maybe pick a date. I think this is a really neat new feature that can be applied in a lot of different situations, be that you have to remind someone or anything like that. Like, for example, let's say you lend your friend a bit of money and they say, all right, I'll give you back that money on, for example, February the 28th. Then you will just go in, you write the message, oh, remember to send me back, return the money I borrowed you. And then you will schedule the message to be sent on February the 28th. And for users of the screen reader app TalkBack, there will be some new additions where they will add a dozen new multi-finger gestures to interact with apps and perform common actions. So this will immensely improve the user experience of people with, for example, visual impairment or other reasons to use a screen reader. And the last one for the Android updates is one that I am particularly fond of. It's dark mode for Google Apps. I am always happy to see dark mode for any apps because I'm not very fond of this white screen for everything because it does strain your eyes quite a lot. So it's very simple, and the only thing you need to do is you need to go into the settings of Google Maps, and then you go to theme, and then you just press always in dark theme. So that is always a very nice addition for people like me who like the dark screens. On to the next story. Microsoft and Fireeye push for mandatory breach reporting rules. This is because they find it essential that companies are obligated to report when their services or servers are breached. They both find it essential that companies are obligated to report any hacking breaches, as this happened both in public and private sector without being reported in the past. Obviously, this is not a new issue, but it's something that has come up again due to a failed breach report from IT group SolarWinds, compromising up to 18,000 customers. This is particularly important because companies like SolarWinds have a lot of customers that also have their own services, like Facebook and such. Next, we have a follow-up on Jack Dorsey's cryptocurrency adventure. Earlier this week, Square Incorporations, which is the company of Cash App, bought 3,318 bitcoins at the average price of $52,000. So in total, that would be approximately $170 million when purchased. That, along with the previous purchase of $50 million in Bitcoin, means that approximately 5% of Square's total cash is now in Bitcoin. I think this just further emphasizes Dorsey's ambitions to make Bitcoin the next internet currency, as we discussed in last week's podcast. Are you a fan of TikTok? Are you a fan of rapping? Well, good news, because Facebook is now launching an app called Bars, all capitalized letters. This is a TikTok-like app for creating and sharing raps. It has the similar style where you have 60 seconds to convey a message through a video with audio. So obviously this format is very similar. One thing though that it has that TikTok doesn't is it has a large audio library where they will generate high quality beats for you to rap to. You can also write your rap down and it will try to match a beat that would go with it. Not only this, but it also comes with a challenge mode where you can freestyle with an auto-suggested word cues feature. So basically, you will start recording. It's completely freestyle. It will give you some auto-generated word cues, and you're supposed to just like go off that. I think this is a very interesting feature, and I think there's going to be a lot of great rap content, to be honest, both in freestyle and more scripted rap. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, and I will definitely download Bars to see how it's going to be received. Keep in mind though that this app is just launched, it's in its beta phase, so everything might not be perfect right off the bat. But it is Facebook again, so I do expect a pretty high quality just straight off the bat, though it might not be perfect. I think that it's safe to assume that most of us here that are interested in tech or stocks have already heard about GameStop stocks and AMC. So a new development is that a company called Peak Media claims to have found bots on a lot of major media platforms that have helped hype up this so-called meme stock. So what they have done, they have gone in and looked at patterns of posting, and they found that a lot of these posts have very similar patterns. And they think that this will be from some foreign actors that are trying to like hype up this stock. This is not very hard to believe because you can get about 1,000 bots or more just for a $200 investment, where you can program it to write whatever post you like. But the impact of this is very hard to track, and even Peak Media said themselves that they're very unclear about like how large of an impact this has. But it certainly has some impact for the people around it. So if you're like me and you're itching to get on this train because it seems too good to be true, well, it most likely is too good to be true. And I would advise to stay away if you don't have a lot of information about it or you're very experienced within the investment field. I just give my personal opinions and then you can take it as it is. I don't recommend or condemn investing in GameStop or AMC. And back to TikTok. So TikTok has agreed to pay a $92 million settlement for a lawsuit accusing them of misusing artificial intelligence to track and store users' data. This data could be anything from age, gender, and ethnicity. They would use some artificial intelligence and face recognition to acquire this information about their users. They are also claimed to send this information back to China, though TikTok has said at several occasions that this is not the case. And you might ask yourself, why would TikTok just settle with $92 million? They definitely have the funds to actually go to court. But personally, I think this just indicates that they know very well themselves that they would not have won this court case if it actually went to court. So they wanted to save themselves from bad PR so they don't lose more money down the line. This is just one of many accusations thrown at TikTok throughout its development, and I don't think it will be the last either. For example, it is not long ago where it was said that they wanted to ban TikTok from US for privacy issues, and I think that this is one of those privacy issues they were referring to. I also expect that it is banned in India for similar reasons. And for the biggest news of today's podcast, we'll be talking about Bitcoin. Only 8 hours prior to this recording, BBC released an article where they were talking about Bitcoin and its energy use and how this can lead to a bursted bubble. So as we all know that earlier this week, it reached its peak at $58,000. The insanely high price for this coin also means that it's even more appealing now than it ever was before in terms of mining for Bitcoins. So for the people that don't know, mining for Bitcoins is basically, simply said, that you borrow your processing power to help the Bitcoin transactions from one user to another. Hosting this transaction gives you a chance to earn Bitcoins, which obviously is becoming more and more lucrative as the price goes up. More and more people want to do it, and more people can afford to do it as they get paid in Bitcoins. So that is the very simplified version of it. If you want to learn more about it, there's a ton of really good YouTube videos on it, and I recommend you look it up if you're interested. The problem is though that you have to spend so much electricity to mine any coins at all, and this use of electricity is starting to show a clear environmental footprint. You can start seeing it everywhere. So many high-level critics has come forth and warned that it's a very inefficient way of transactions. Even though it's hard to track exactly how much power it consumes to do these transactions, it is estimated that it's about 111.7 terawatt hours per year. That's more than the entire consumption of the Netherlands, an entire country. And why this is very bad is you have to think about like where is it the cheapest to do this, because you get paid in a cryptocurrency, so the value is going to be really high. So you just want to be somewhere where it's really cheap and where you can get hardware for a very small price. Examples of places could be countries like China, Vietnam, and others around there where it's developing countries. Electricity is very cheap, hardware is very cheap, but the electricity mainly comes from polluting sources, often from fossil fuel. According to a survey, about 2/3 of the electricity for the Bitcoin miners are actually from fossil fuel. So with an electricity consumption of more than the Netherlands, all from fossil fuel or mostly fossil fuel, this is a really big problem. And as the price keeps going up for Bitcoin, there's going to be more Bitcoin miner competition, which means more consumption. And this is just an evil cycle that's going to be very, very bad for the environment. And it already is. To make things even worse, if we go back to what the critics were saying, they're saying that this is very inefficient. And why is it very inefficient? Well, Bitcoin mining is and transaction is not really built to be scalable at a very, very big scale as it has become. Because the vast majority of calculation that needs to be done in order to even transact it serves no purpose. They get discarded immediately after completion, which means there's a lot of energy and computing power that's wasted on stuff that is not really even necessary at all. This is why they're saying it's so inefficient. And because of its design, the processing power needed for a transaction goes up exponentially as the miners increase. So the more Bitcoin miners there are, the more calculations you have to do. Sure, it's harder to track, but there's so much wasted energy. And when not all, but when most of this is coming from fossil fuel and polluting sources, as I said before, this is very, very bad. If you can't take my word for it, take it from Ken Rogoff, a man with a lot more experience and knowledge within the field and a professor of economics at Harvard University in Cambridge and a former chief economist at the IMF. He said this. He said, "The two essential features of a successful currency are that it is an effective form of exchange and a stable store of value." And he says that Bitcoin is neither. He continues, "The fact is, it's not really used much in the legal economy now. Yes, one rich person sells it to another, but that's not a final use. And without that, it really doesn't have a long-term future. And Bitcoin exists almost exclusively as a vehicle for speculation." When he was asked, "Is the bubble about to burst?" he said, "That's my guess, but I really couldn't tell you when." So a lot of people way smarter than me think that the bubble is about to burst, and a lot of people also smarter than me are really rooting for Bitcoin, notably Jack Dorsey. So it's really hard to take a stance when it comes to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and I will leave that to you. I'm not going to make that decision for you. And that's the beauty of podcast. I can just pitch in what I know, what I heard, and what I read, and then you can make the best out of it. And that's all for tech news for this episode. But don't worry, now it's time for me to share a bit of what I know about cryptocurrencies and what I recently found out. Not only about Bitcoin as we're talking about now, but also another coin that's been a lot on the media recently, notably Dogecoin. Alright, well, I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter today to not go on a rant like last time, and I'm going to share a little bit of my experience with cryptocurrencies. So basically, I am not a cryptocurrency hodler. I do not sit on plenty of Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Dogecoin, but I do know a little bit. I have attended several webinars and I've done a lot of research online to know whether or not you should go for it. Me myself, I'm a bit of a criticizer of cryptocurrency, as I feel like it has a lot of resemblance to a lot of the bubbles in the past. So yes, I am a believer that this is a bubble. I think that cryptocurrency does have a function. However, I don't know how applicable and how sustainable it is going to be for the future. So to start off, I believe that the cryptocurrency Bitcoin can reach a very high value. Some experts say that they assume that it will reach about $140,000. However, I have my doubts. So basically, a lot of people, including Bill Gates, are saying they are not bullish on Bitcoin. And the reason why they're not is because they don't believe it produces any value. This is a lot of investors' idea. It also applies to, for example, gold, where people would usually only use gold to protect against inflation, but not earn a quick buck. The difference with cryptocurrencies is that they're very volatile, so a lot of people have made a lot of money. And obviously this is very appealing for most people, and they want to get in on it before it's too late. So obviously, Bill Gates is a very intelligent person, and he is not bullish against the Bitcoin, but that doesn't necessarily mean something, because as we have heard both in this podcast and the previous, Jack Dorsey, the owner of both the Square Incorporations and for Twitter, is very bullish, and he believes that there's a lot of money to be earned, and he thinks it has a very good future. But in the light of today's news, the tech news, where the largest one I went most in depth to was the bubble of Bitcoin, whether or not it is a bubble and it is going to burst. A lot of experts think that it will, but I'm not 100% sure. I am still on the side of the skepticism. I do not believe that it has a very long future in front of it. It does resemble the .com bubble of the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But I do understand that a lot of people can earn a lot of money on it if they do it correctly. Is it too late to earn money on it? Probably not. If you were really early and invested really early, maybe you bought Bitcoin at 10,000. Even at 10,000, you would have earned a lot of money by now. Or even if you bought it at when it was at 100, which is a very long time ago. But if you did, that would be an insane profit, and no one can argue against that. But because of the sheer energy use and everything like that, I feel like it is really hard to justify saying that it's going to be like the internet currency of the future, especially for the commonwealth, which I assume the vast majority of us are. When it comes to the criminal side of things, when you look at the illicit use, well, it's not illicit use because it's not centralized, but I feel like it has a lot of application there because it's really hard to track. Is that good though? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% for it, but that's up to each and every one of us. Next thing I want to touch on is Dogecoin compared to like Ethereum and Bitcoin. I do not think that it is the currency of the people as Elon Musk has claimed. I don't believe he honestly believes so himself. I do think that he might be capitalizing on the fame he has. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but he's a very intelligent businessman. And he knows that he can, and he has the power to move the market quite drastically because this has been proven many times in the past. The reason why Dogecoin is never going to be anything particular is because Dogecoin was, first of all, made as a meme. It's not supposed to be any actual currency that we'll use in daily life. It was made as a meme in the past. It was made as a meme from a meme. Obviously, it's the Doge meme from like at least 10 years ago, and now I would assume. And I think it will stay that way. It's just a meme. The reason is it does not have a maximum cap, which means it's very easy to mine. You can take in comparison, Bitcoin has a cap of, I think, 21 million coins, while Dogecoin doesn't have a cap at all. It's said that it's mined, I'm not sure about the exact number of Bitcoins that are mined, but it's not that much. But if you look at Dogecoin, it's about 128 billion coins. So what this means is that even if some hype bumps it up to even 10 cents, it will never reach $1 because if it rises in value, people will see this and they'll start mining it, which directly deflates the value of the coin. Because it's so easy to mine, it will naturally deflate, and it's not sustainable whatsoever. And I would not recommend anyone to invest in Dogecoin. Sure, you can earn a little bit here and there if you are a day trader and you're just going to profit off the hype that is going on, as so many others are. Not saying it's impossible to earn money from it, but I will not recommend investing into Dogecoin whatsoever. It is just a meme. So to round this off, I think that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the more legit coins of the world are not going to replace the fiat currencies we have. And I feel like it's more likely that if we're going to have a cryptocurrency to go worldwide, it is going to be centralized. It's not going to be one of those decentralized ones, in my fair opinion, because I think that with a proper structure to back it, it is going to be way more efficient. It's not going to have a huge impact on the environment as we see with, for example, Bitcoin. And I think that it's going to be more approved by governments around the world, which in the long run is going to matter a lot. So that is my 50 cents for it. You can obviously have your own opinion. That is completely fine. And if you do, please let me know. You can go to my YouTube, Tech Talks and Beyond, or my Twitter, twitter.com/talksbeyond. You can also pop by my Twitch. I'm not gonna do much live streaming of podcast recording, but I will do some coding. I will do some gaming every now and then. So I would really appreciate if you pop by and said hello. And obviously, if you're not listening to this on BuzzSprout, check me out on BuzzSprout and on most of the other large podcasting services. I am not currently on Amazon Podcast yet, and I am not on Apple Podcast, but I'm working on it. So hopefully in the future, I will also be there. This has been Tech Talks and Beyond. I hope each and every one of you have enjoyed this episode and learned something new. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week for the next episode.